welcome to Real Gardens. Now, this series is not about one-hit wonders. Real gardeners know that gardens have a past, a present and a future. And over the last 3 years, our Real Gardeners have shown that they're committed to their gardens for the long term. So, to mark this new Sunday evening slot, we've got a special programme. We're going to go back and visit 3 of our Real Gardeners from last year and see how their gardens have changed over the seasons and have continued to change right up to the present day. Anne-Marie is going back to Burton to tell the story of a couple of first-time gardeners and the transformation of their steeply sloping garden over the course of last year. And Carol Klein is going back to the tiny Portsmouth garden, where she helped to create a huntsman's retreat from the city during last spring and summer. Behind an end of terrace cottage in the suburbs of Liverpool lies a garden which went through some surprising changes last year. But in March, when I first met Annabel Wynne-Jones, the garden was a bit of a mess. Looking from the house, it seemed almost to be 2 gardens rather than 1. On the left-hand side, Annabel had put in a pond and a brick path that led to an old shed in the top corner. The right-hand side was dominated by a scruffy patch of grass that served as a play area for her 4 young children. While Annabel was clearly a committed gardener, her husband Nick preferred spending time indoors. I wondered what they shared in the garden.
Lunch.
Lunch, yes, definitely. Not very much. I'm not a particularly keen gardener.
I think I'm not a gardener would have done.
Yes.
When we arrived here, this side of the garden had actually been a coal yard. From here right to the end.
Right back up close to the house?
Yeah. In fact, here there was a building, or the remains of a building. So all this area here was brick on edge, asphalt, broken glass. It was very industrial. It was horrible.
So when did you build the ponds?
All this was done the summer after we arrived.
Now, it's looking pretty established, isn't it, with the planting?
Yes, it's come on really well.
On my first visit, I could see that there were a lot of early spring jobs to be done, starting with a buddleia in dire need of pruning.
It's really gone out of shape now, and it's got out of hand. It needs hacking back.
We should have a hack.
Yeah, a good hack.
I'm up for that.
Yeah. OK, so if I cut this bit off...
No, come on, mate. We've got to be a bit
here?
more radical than that. Get in with some
please.
numbers. Yeah, go on.
Oh!
That's it. I don't know what you're laughing about.
Just, it is radical.
You will thank me for
So,
it.
shall I put these away?
Cut as low as you can, down to, buds like these down here, low buds.
Right.
Always the second one up, just in case the bottom one dies.
Dies.
But the lower you cut it, the more vigorous the new growth, the better it will flower.
Yeah.
Now, we're nearly there. What do you say, here?
No, further back now.
You see you've got the
I'm
bug,
getting a
haven't
taste
you?
for
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Right. Well, now you can see.
See that awful mess?
It must have been, it's not a great view, is it?
No, this is the project for this summer. This corner of the garden is going to be transformed.
When are you going to do that?
When am I going to do it? When are we going to do it? Come on, give me a hand, girls.
Although I didn't realise it at the time, all this rubbish was destined to be replaced by Annabel's longed-for formal garden. It would all be done by Annabel herself, with occasional bouts of hard labour from me. When spring finally arrived, the garden began to show its first signs of promise. The apple blossom's looking brilliant.
It is. It lasts such a short time, but right now it's perfect.
You've come on the right day.
You've picked it, yeah.
Which potentil is that?
Not a clue. I don't know.
That well-known variety, not a clue.
Yeah.
That's great, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you've got just this little bit's fantastic, because you've got the ajuga, which that blue couldn't be better, could it?
I don't seem to remember it being that blue last year.
And the euphorbia. Which euphorbia is it?
My mum's garden. My mother gave it me. I haven't really got any idea what it is.
Annabel's first major project was to replace her old grass with a new lawn. Hi, you two.
Hello.
You're going to be part of the lawn force.
I'm here in a supervisory role.
So Muggins will do all the work.
Yes, that's right.
Daisy, you going to help us?
No. Looks like you're on your own there, Monty.
With the help of a mechanical turf cutter, the old grass came up easy, that we then stacked for load. a rotavator quickly turned over the soil underneath. Then we added several tons of good quality topsoil to get the new lawn off to a flying start. So, with a sprinkling of grow more and a final raking to help the turf take root, we were ready for the green stuff.
That's nice, isn't it? Trust me with a knife. I'll give it a wash before I carve the meat.
How about that?
It's just fantastic.
Almost looks real, doesn't it?
It does. It's a shame you're taking it home with you tonight.
Oh, that's the way it is with television. Just a fortnight later, it had taken beautifully, and the herbaceous border was opening up into its full glory. It was time to tackle one of the biggest jobs of the year, the formal garden.
I have worked so hard. No slacking this time.
Are you taking up all those bricks there?
All the bricks, they're the ones I've saved.
And these pegs?
I've marked out the paths and the beds, and they're the corners. I know what they mean.
Yeah, down it goes. The pegs were intended to mark up the paths between the beds, but the entire area needed levelling, which is where I came in.
It looked like it was going to be this much work.
But to be honest, I'm not really clear what you're trying to achieve.
Did I not show you this? That's not it, but that's the kind of spirit of it.
Okay, all right. It was difficult to imagine that anyone could do anything with a sketchy idea and a lot of bare earth. But by the time I returned a couple of weeks later, Annabelle had created a formal parterre. Wowee! You've been showing off.
I've been working hard.
Why did you choose this very pale grey?
Well, it wasn't the gravel that I had in my head. Normally have gravel in my head. But when I went down to the builder's yard and saw this, I thought that will just provide such a strong contrast to the dark kind of greens that I'm thinking of for the planting.
We're going to have a lot of planting to do.
I know.
Guess what we're going to be doing in future weeks? By midsummer, the garden was beginning to look its best. I like your daisies, now they're in flower.
Look at them, they're just perfect. This means summer's arrived to me. They're so white and so yellow. Just, look.
It was time to check the results of our first spring pruning job. Now, we had a bet.
We did.
And what was that bet?
You said the buddleia would be in flower by the 1st of August.
Exactly. There it is. Wonderful. You know, you can hack a buddleia back as hard as you like and it always comes back.
But, you know, really, we could stand here all day admiring the buddleia.
Yeah.
But I've really got some serious work for you to do again.
So
Over here.
Crikey, buddleia's the building site.
I know.
So what's on here?
This is going to be my Italian terrace. I can just see it now. We're going to be sitting out here in the late evening sun. We'll be sipping Chianti by tea time. Better get started.
Okay. Using the concrete base on which the shed once stood, we were able to add hardcore and sand to make a level surface ready for the paving slabs. Push down. That's it. Keep pushing down.
So I was in labour again then.
With the help of the plan, we started laying paving slabs, but despite a full day's work, we ran out of time. Given Annabelle's capacity for hard work, I wasn't surprised on my return to find that she'd finished the job. So this is all done.
Yeah.
We got to about there, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
But I've got a confession to make. I actually relayed it the next day.
Is that everything that we did?
Well, when I'd finished and I looked at it, it looked a bit wonky. And Nick was of the same opinion.
Fine, I don't feel at all offended by that. Are you using it? That's the important
thing. Oh my
thing.
goodness, yeah, we've used it so much. It's just been everything I wanted.
And looking out on that, you're getting really posh, you know.
I know, I feel quite guilty about doing all that planting without you.
Well, you would have made me replant it again the next day, probably.
Probably.
But these look really good, don't they?
I know, they're gorgeous, aren't they?
They look lovely. And when there's something in them,
yeah,
they'll look even lovelier. A couple of weeks later, I could do something more useful, planting winter-flowering pansies. Right, we should water those in.
How long will they take to spread and fill the bed?
Well, about 2 or 3 months. I mean, the roots have got established. I'll tell you what will make them go much quicker and make them flower much better next spring would be to cut off all the existing flowers, which might seem a bit radical, but it would undoubtedly make for stronger plants.
Would it?
Yep.
Well, yeah, I've had bare earth long enough, so a few, like, headless flowers should go nicely.
This may have seemed drastic at the time, but within a couple of weeks, we saw the results.
Ta-da!
Was I right or was I right?
They came into flower within about a week.
Not only are they fully in flower, but also the plants look pretty healthy, don't they?
They've really bushed out already,
Yeah.
haven't they?
And they're going to really cheer up a drab winter's day, aren't they?
You did a good job, but I've got more work for you. Come and see this.
Annabelle and I didn't always see eye to eye.
Well, I'm going to train a peach tree onto the back wall.
Have you grown a peach before?
No, never.
Peaches like really good drainage,
Right, well, it's...
lots of sun,
Yeah.
plus quite rich soil with the good drainage. That is claggy old compost on concrete.
Yeah? Well, that should make it drain quite well,
No, it
shouldn't
won't. It means it won't drain. It'll just sit and soak up all the moisture.
I think it will grow fantastically.
And of course, it was her garden, so I just knuckled down and planted it.
Which bits does it actually fruit on?
If there's fruit on that, I'll... Oh, I don't know what I'll do.
There your arse in Woolly's window.
There, my ass, well, I hadn't thought of that. As we moved into autumn, the garden began to fade. But Annabelle still had some surprises for me. More than a...
Yeah, you know me. Never still. Do you remember what was here before? Scrappy, horrible bits of grass. And I'd already got rid of a load to make that border wider. And I saw the strip of grass and I thought, I see a stream. I see a stream.
Annabelle had a pile of old stone blocks, and she wanted to arrange them like natural boulders in a stream bed.
Coffee?
No, I don't know. It's one of these things. We're just going to have to keep trying, Monty. Mind your head on that place. Oh, no, not that way.
While we were trying to create a natural stream course, we also wanted to hide the liner, so we put larger stones around the edges and filled the gaps with smaller ones. Easy, really. Then Nick surprised us with an offer of help. Are you going to put the pump in for us?
I'll do it now.
Go on.
Don't die of shock. I'll do it now.
I am going to die.
And then the moment of truth.
I kind of imagined it would have more movement to it, but maybe that's because we need more stones.
Well, I think it's charming. Yeah. Mind you, I reckon you'll be spending weeks fossicking about in there.
And messing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want this garden back to how it was before you came, and I want the shed back.
Well, now it's 9 months later, and although Nick hasn't got his shed back, Annabelle hasn't stopped improving her garden. Looking good.
It is, isn't it? Although I say it myself.
That's changed.
There was a waterfall and I got sick of it leaking all the time, so
I love that intense red.
It's good against the jar as well,
Beautiful.
isn't it?
I mean, it looks lusher. The flowers are doing incredibly well here.
Really pleased with everything, really.
I mean, it does look very, very healthy. Have you been mulching it?
I did, I was good. I mulched.
See, that was still a bit scrubby when we left, wasn't it?
Yes, I've put quite a lot of stuff in
and
there.
that fence wasn't there.
That's my new fence.
Through the arch. Didn't have a rabbit.
No, we didn't have a rabbit.
And then the roses are coming on.
Yeah.
Coming on nicely.
Yeah. It's much more woodlandy now, isn't it?
And you've got the beech hedge. You're going to grow that right up or just keep it low?
Right up.
Right.
Right up to the wood, yeah.
And this whole new area, because the Wendy house was there.
Yeah, and the pergola went round.
When did you do this?
Just this spring.
So still finding projects?
Yeah, but I'm running out.
Are you? You'll have to dig up the lawn. Vegetables, that's the next thing. So this new arch.
Yes.
This wasn't here, the fence wasn't here.
No, it's all new.
And what we put, and it's taken well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That almost looks like a hedge.
It does, doesn't it? And that was all that was in here when you left.
It's brilliant, it's good. What's this tube?
Oh, well, that's a project I was undertaking when I heard you were coming back.
Right.
And I've saved it for you because basically I don't want to groin myself lifting this flipping thing into position.
Me to groin myself.
Yeah, you
Okay.
and Nick.
So this is it.
Do you want me to give you a hand?
Let's just get hold of it.
Oh, flipping heck, Monty.
It's probably easier if I just keep going now, OK?
Right.
I'll go and
Okay.
get you an ambulance then.
You do the... Has it got to be wired up?
Oh, I've done all that. Just needs the hose putting on it. Keep going, Monty. That's
go
how
this
it's
way,
quicker.
haven't
Bit heavy, that, isn't
It's
it?
a lump, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, well, now what do you do with it?
Right, we'll just cut that pipe down to the right length and it slides on
Go on.
inside.
Can that go back down? Yeah.
I'll go and switch the pump on.
Switch it
Come
on.
on.
I hope the pump's big enough.
Oh, look.
Oh,
That's good.
is it a bit of a trickle?
Well, it's nice. I like it. I
Oh,
like the way that it's random. It's not sort of an even spread. I seem to... We're in territory
Nice,
I find
isn't
familiar. You watching saying, oh, a bit more,
Yeah.
bit more.
Well, why do you think I waited for you to come and do this? I am going a bit mad on water features.
You've got
I
lots,
think.
haven't you?
Yeah.
Do you know, I was thinking when we came here that this stream was by far the most dramatic thing we did. Even though, actually, I remember when doing it felt like it was
A
just...
bit laborious.
Well, yeah, it was just sort
I
of
think we
an
had
afternoon's work.
fun, though, doing it,
Yeah, I
didn't
enjoyed
we?
it. And how's your peach?
Well, I didn't want to, you know,
It's got fruit.
make you look like a right Wally.
Well, you've just succeeded.
Would you like to pick one and take one home?
Is it a peach or an apricot? It almost looks like an apricot. What? Oh, it's wide on. It's grown well. It's grown really well. See, you couldn't bear the defeat.
We knew you could take a joke, Monty.
I've really enjoyed my revisit to this garden because it confirms something that I feel passionately. And that is, you only get out of a garden what you put in. You can spend all the money in the world, get teams of people in, but unless you've done it yourself, it won't work. And Annabelle once called this an Annabelle garden. And every square inch of this garden is hers. And it really does ram home that message that a garden is as good as the gardener's intention. And if you put a lot in, then it's bound to be a good garden. Now, after the break, we've got the story of Anne-Marie Powell's labours in Burton-on-Trent. See you in a minute or two. Welcome back. Now, no two gardens are alike, but one of the plots we took on last year was spectacularly difficult. It was a steeply sloping plot belonging to novices Heather and Russell Eales on the outskirts of Burton-on-Trent. And Anne-Marie Powell visited them for the first time in March 1999. Heather and Russell had taken over the house and garden where Heather's great-aunt once lived. When they arrived, the garden was derelict, and they'd worked hard to clear out the rubbish. They wanted to create a new garden from scratch. So Anne-Marie was going to have to work for a living.
This garden's got lots of potential, but you've got a big task on your hands, haven't you?
Well, we've cleared loads of it already, and we're sort of getting to that stage now where we want some ideas, don't we, about different things. And we've got a few ideas of our own, but it's actually putting them into action so far.
Russell and Heather's vision of a more stylish and low-maintenance garden was to take them the next 6 months to create. Our very first task was to tackle the one large feature that overshadowed everything. Well, the biggest area of planting is really this Leylandii hedge, isn't it? And
yes,
what do you make of that, then?
Well, it's still growing all the time, so I think it needs to be tackled really quite quickly.
And when were you planning to do it?
Now's good.
Oh, great. I really landed myself into that one. Do you want to start? It's your hedge.
Yeah, why not?
Because the garden is on a slope, we started trimming from the top down. Heather and Russell had got permission from their neighbours before we began. This is my first taste of Heather and Russell's idea of a job, and there were plenty more to come.
Right, are you ready?
I am so glad that this is finished. It's taken longer than we thought.
But it's a really, really good job that we've done there. I'm really pleased with that. One more job.
As if that wasn't enough work for one visit, Russell still had a childhood ambition to fulfil. Why have you chosen to put a pond in the garden?
I've always wanted a water feature ever since I was a little boy. There's other little reasons as well, like the wildlife aspect, isn't there?
You're looking at Heather when you say that.
That was a pointed look there.
Why?
Because he knows I'm not really keen on wildlife. He's got a major thing about frogs, that he wants to get them in to kill all the slugs. And, I mean, really, it's the frog thing, I don't want it. I don't like them at all.
You backed down, did you?
No, we're not having any frogs.
Occasional visitors.
Despite her misgivings, Heather did all the excavation work.
Anne-Marie, Russell, do you think you can come over and just have a look at this? I think I've about finished it.
Oh, good. Cool, you really do dig for England, don't you? Drop it in.
Try it.
Oh, it's not too small, that's for sure.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, if we just pack out the gaps with sand and then, yeah, check the levels and Bob's your uncle. Frogs or no frogs, the pond was the first proper feature in Heather and Russell's garden. It was April before we even began to think about planting. And as usual, Heather and Russell already had their own ideas.
This is the master plan. Brilliantly.
It's good, isn't it?
Brilliantly illustrated.
Did you?
I coloured it in as well, but Russell likes to take all the glory.
He is, isn't he?
All he did was the bit of writing up the side, and that was it. I did all the good bit.
My paints.
Brilliant. So what kind of ideas have you got about planting style?
Really, you know, texture, colour, form. That's what we really want to put down here. A 3D trip, right, crashing into the bottom area. That's what we really want to do. A bit of impact.
Heather and I finally had permission to plant something. Heather's a beauty therapist, and there was one plant she especially wanted to have in her garden.
I'm just going to get this to sit on, so I don't want to get mucky.
Why have you chosen lavender?
Well, we use lavender within aromatherapy at work, and I thought I'd try and bring it within the garden a little bit. It's very good for rheumatic aches and pains, very good as a skin rejuvenator.
Skin rejuvenator?
Yes.
What do you do with that?
Well, you put it on and you look 10 2 minutes later.
Really?
No.
One thing about lavender that people never ever seem to do is they're scared to trim them. They let them get really woody. So every spring, if you just chop it back to literally there, and then what that will do is it will just keep the growth back, but have lots of flowers.
That won't look too ugly though, will it?
Well, it'll look a bit bare at first, but it'll be worth it.
Right.
One day in late May, I had to put on protective clothing, and Heather was her usual charming self. My leg's too fat?
Yeah. It's all that cellulite you've got.
You cheeky cow. The job involved putting in a retaining wall between the lawn and the surrounding features. They'd chosen wooden stakes, which had to be cut to length. I was supposed to wield the chainsaw, but it didn't quite work out that way.
The job that really got on my nerves was putting those stakes around the lawn when the chainsaw broke. Yeah. And we spent all day trying to saw through about 5-inch stakes by hand, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I want you to hold it steadier.
I'm holding it steadier, it's you.
No! It was hard graft and slow progress. So that'll do. It's not been easy, has it?
No. There's been ups and downs, but we've still achieved something anyway.
You can have a rest now.
Oh, thank you. But Heather and Russell weren't put off that easily, as I found out next time I called. Wow! I thought I was going to be finishing this off with you today.
No, we thought we'd save you a little bit of sweat this week.
Well, thanks very much. That looks
right.
Absolutely brilliant. You must be chuffed to bits with it.
Yeah, it looks really good. We're pleased with it.
The structure of the garden was finally taking shape, and we were beginning to see some colour. That's certainly a statement you've made there.
Do you like it?
Yeah, where'd you get it from?
We got it from a garden centre. We had a ride out the other day and we saw it and we kept walking away from it because we really did like it, and we've always wanted a sculpture, but the price was putting us off a little bit.
So how much was it?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Well, it was 160, so it took a lot of thinking about, but it's going to last for years. And it'll be nice when all the plants have grown around it as well.
It's certainly different, isn't it? I imagined that Russell was in the spare bedroom sculpting at midnight, this big hand.
Well, I got fed up with him, so I buried him under there. That's just his hand, yeah.
With 2 women ganging up on him, poor Russell didn't stand a chance.
It's been a huge amount of work for you so far. How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm getting a 6-pack. It's doing well.
I've not seen it.
By the end of July, Russell had almost finished the steps that finally made a safe walkway from the top of the garden to the bottom.
What's been your method? How have you done this?
Well, dug down a little bit, levelled it off, compacted the soil, put a bed down of sand. Under the edges of the actual steps, I put a little bit of mortar just to hold the edge in place. Now you're going to tell me the right way to do it. I can tell.
Well, the thing is, I think I would have made a lot more hard work for us, to be honest, and made a bit more mess. I would have put in quite a chunk of hardcore so that it would be supported, a layer of sand, and maybe mixing that with cement as well, so it really binds it, and then mortar jointed the slabs in between.
Well, time will tell.
Russell got his own way, and we completed the steps using his method.
That's lovely.
I think that's rubbish.
Oh, can I have a massage now?
Oh, God, go on.
You are the resident beauty therapist, aren't you?
5 minutes and that's it.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this all day. You know, I still think we should have put some cement with that sand.
Oh, shut up. I think the thing is with Anne-Marie, she'd dig down 6 foot and concrete everything in and make sure it wouldn't move ever again, wouldn't she?
That's it, belt braces and straight jacket.
You just don't know how your garden's going to develop, so you don't necessarily want something that permanent. This is the scree bed that I've been preparing, ready for you coming.
Brilliant idea for your steeply sloping garden, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you get them at bases of mountains in the sort of wild.
I wanted something that's going to be low maintenance, because it's not really very easy access, is it?
I want to move some of those rocks, though.
You're not? Because I like them like that, and you're not coming and ruining my hard work. So.
But they're all different, and I think they'd look better if they were along sort of more of a line.
Well, I don't.
What are you like?
So slightly above the surface.
Yeah.
Why is that then?
Because we've got the gravel to go on.
Right.
So like that, can you see it's still got colour?
Yeah.
Heather had chosen alpines, the same kind of plants you'd find in similar conditions in the wild. The gravel layer helped to keep maintenance to a minimum by keeping the weeds out and the moisture in. To help the plants to settle in, they needed a really good soaking. The finished effect of the blue-grey gravel really set the plants off.
Well, we're going to use the...
September was the perfect time for a spot of lawn maintenance, and a great chance for Russell to get his own back on me.
Next, we need aeration, just to put a bit of oxygen back into the roots.
Right, so we're going to spike the lawn, yeah? What are we going to do this with?
Well, I'm going to use the tried and trusted, the fork. You... Here we go. Aeration shoes.
They're not going to work.
Well, we've got to try these things out, haven't we?
I'm never going to live this down.
Go on, do the funky hustle.
Russell's old-fashioned method of driving a fork into the soil is more than adequate on his size lawn, but these aeration shoes made me feel a right prat.
They suit you.
None of my friends will ever talk to me again.
By the end of September, the progress in the garden was plain to see, and a new shed designed and built by Russell completed the picture. There was one last major change to the garden which I had longed for all summer. I always hated that hedge.
The Leylandii are departing. They are going west, they are leaving this plane of existence. Next door weren't too happy about the way they were growing anyway, so we really came to a decision. It was time for them to go, and go they are.
And that's how I left the garden last year. But how do Heather and Russell feel about the whole experience?
It was a really good experience. I recommend it to anybody. If not, it's a catalyst to actually progress and to actually start a major project.
Very enjoyable, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's something that we can be proud of.
Almost a year later, I'm back to see the garden as it is now. Or at least I will in a minute.
There you are, then you can look now. You
Deja
can look.
vu.
I don't want to look, actually. I really don't. I'm enjoying the excitement. Oh, my God. It's so tidy.
I know.
I can't believe how tidy it is. That's so you, isn't it? Mm. Let's get in there and have a look.
Yeah, come and have a look down here.
Amazing. God, everything's gone mad, hasn't it?
Have you seen this?
That sedum is just completely
it's
bonkers,
only about
isn't
that
it?
big, wasn't it, when we put it in?
Small.
You could just take bits off and chuck it around it with seed, wouldn't it?
Everything's growing, you know, it's just all spreading together, joining.
I've always hated those.
Leave it.
We've separated these up as well.
Yeah.
Try and spread them out a
so
bit.
great, don't they? They're just like, they're really beautiful. Such a gorgeous red, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you've got a palm.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Canners as well.
Yep.
They're going to die.
No, they're not.
They're protected.
We've had to redo all this side since the fence has been put up, haven't we?
Yeah.
Because remember all the trees were there.
All the conifers.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, they say that canners are not hardy, but mine have come up again this year without even, you know, any problems at all. But are you going to wrap your palm in fleece or something like that as
Yeah,
well?
I'm going to bring it all together, wrap it round, you know, pack it with fleece or straw or something.
He's even started putting vegetables in, look.
I just wanted a little bit of space for something to actually grow and eat.
Yeah.
It was just really snuck in, wasn't it?
Yes. I didn't realise until it was in. It was doing it as per.
Yeah, that's it.
But mind you, we've had trouble with this wild rabbit, haven't we? And it came into the garden and Russell was like, oh, isn't it cute? And he got a carrot and he was trying to feed it. And then when it started eating all the vegetables, he was like saying, oh, I'm going to kill it.
Oh, they get in, don't they?
Just stripped it, stripped everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways it's good because it's taken all the leading shoots out my runner beans. So I've got like the podding side shoots already.
Getting a lot bushier.
Yeah.
What about this pond?
If you can find it, and all the greenery and shrubbery.
Look at it.
It's a little bit better disguised than it was. The line is not so obvious.
Yeah.
And have you fallen in love with it yet?
Well, do you know what? We've got 4 frogs now. You know how I hate frogs?
Yeah, you hate them.
Well, let me tell you something. I did actually pick one up the other week because it was a case of me mowing it. And I thought, I don't want to clean my mower, so I will have to move it. So I was like this. And then I just, like, chucked it in quick. But I thought that was quite brave of me.
It was very brave of you,
saying I hate
Heather.
them so much.
It's really good. There's just so many plants and so many new introductions that I can see as well.
Yeah.
It's lovely to think that you've taken it up. Look at that little Tradescant there.
Yeah.
And this lawn's doing really well, isn't it?
This is my bit, this lawn.
This is the manicured bit.
It's the beauty therapist lawn, isn't it, actually?
Mind you, you mow it, don't you?
I mow it, yeah.
And then I've come out 2 days later and said he's not done it properly and I have to do it again. Have you seen the hand now?
God, well, you can hardly see it, can you?
Yeah.
You've rammed so much into it.
Oh, yeah, shoehorn job.
Yeah. What a brilliant introduction that is, really, that fence, compared to that horrible coniferous Leylandii hedge.
It was awful. It looks 100% better, doesn't it?
And it can just open up the possibilities as well, so much different planting.
In the 9 months since I last visited Heather and Russell, the garden has come on tremendously. Russell has become more adventurous in his choice of plants. The structure means the garden remains neat and tidy without too much work, which suits Heather down to the ground. It's great to see that all our hard work has had such lasting results.
Well, I think your garden, it just reflects your personality, doesn't it?
It does,
and it's your creation and you have what you want in it, and it doesn't matter whether somebody else likes it or not. No. It's whether you like it and you feel comfortable in it.
It's each to their own. It's what you want, that is the main thing. If you're happy, that's all that matters.
After the break, we've got the story of Carol Klein, 2 men, and a pocket handkerchief garden in Portsmouth. See you in a minute. Now, one of the gardens that Carol Klein visited regularly last year was behind a terrace cottage in Portsmouth. And this tiny slither of a garden belonged to a couple called Jem and Drew. And if Drew was probably happier with his computer, Jem was already a committed gardener. Jem and Drew have lived in the street for 8 years. Although this was their first proper garden, Jem has always been a keen gardener.
I think that it's just taking a small piece of the city and doing something that's yours with it, a piece of land, and just thinking about it and changing it and having somewhere to escape to with all the built-up stuff around you that's green and natural and organic and you can connect with is just heaven.
This is the shadiest part of the garden. You don't get the sun here, well, a couple of hours in the morning, that's about it.
But it's working, isn't it?
It's getting there slowly.
When I first saw the garden back in early May last year, I could tell that although it was tiny, it was crammed full of well-loved plants. The first job Jem and Drew wanted to tackle was to create a sitting area at one end of the garden.
We think decking.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it's going to have to go where this wonderful bed is.
We started by transferring Jem's precious plants into pots until their new home was ready. The main priority is really to dig these things out quickly and get them potted up fast. And they're all going to wilt like mad because they've got such a lot of, you know, top growth. This hooker is...
Hooker, didn't take much to pull that one out.
No, look at this, it's all dry underneath.
Well, it hasn't been in there long.
None of these plants suffered for being moved, since it was still early in the season. A couple of weeks later, we got the decking finished, and the plants safely settled into their new home. By June, the area was completely transformed, and the boys were using it for all sorts of jobs, including planting up edible hanging baskets.
I mixed this up earlier, but it's mainly just ordinary compost, some organic compost and some water crystal. Retains the water a bit more during the day.
Really important, isn't it, with a hanging basket? Right. Will you remember to water it too? I bet you will.
Oh yeah, every morning. That's one of my ways of waking up, is I stumble around the garden with a watering can and a hose. Watering's wonderful for noticing things you haven't seen, because you're taking a bit more time over it. And, you know, I always notice something that's flowering, and then I go and rush in and get Drew and say, come and see this.
Come and see this is out.
Good activity, isn't it? So, are you using all the tomatoes in here?
So we've got some really unusual ones. Purple calabash, white, yellow plum.
God, you do go for the unusual, don't you?
We do. It suits us. And the wonderful thing about us as well, I suppose, because the garden's so small, we only need one or two of anything. Yeah. So people have often got one or two things that they don't mind giving you, even if they're special.
That's lovely, isn't it, with that orange? Yeah. Look at that.
And I think we ought to put a few of these jalapeno chilies in, give it a bit of heat.
Yeah.
And I like experimenting. It makes things a bit more interesting. You know, all we need is a mozzarella plant and we'd have a movable feast here.
Who's going to be in charge of the chains?
Well, I'm the tallest.
Oh, gosh, I'm glad it's you. Have you felt the weight of it? Look at that. Again, the tomatoes in the right place.
Wonderful.
Jem is a passionate propagator, and by mid-June the garden was crowded with dozens of seed trays holding thousands of seedlings. With no room for a greenhouse, we decided to build a cold frame to protect them through the winter. We started by building a base using reclaimed bricks from Jem's fireplace. We put more bricks into the pit to bring the level up from the concrete floor, and filled the remaining space with 2 bags of shingle to provide drainage. With the shingle levelled, the space was ready for Jem's self-assembled cold frame. But were we?
So we need to take that one out and swap it with this one.
Right, forget the glass.
Oh, hang on.
Oh dear, it came
That's all right.
It came up in my hand.
No, I need to...
Oh, the best laid plans.
Of mice and gardeners.
It's brilliant, isn't
fab,
it?
Isn't it? It looks really posh.
It does. Allow me to open this for you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to bring them straight in.
Yeah.
They're great cold frames, aren't they? Because you're going to have a real protected environment for bringing on these little seedlings.
And we keep the slugs out, which is really good as well.
Yeah, they're great in the winter too, because you can store things in here, put a bit of extra insulation if you need it. That's it.
Great.
But there's a few pots here.
That's a rare thing in this house. Empty pots.
Yeah, well, any chance of filling them with some of that soil improvement, giving me a few of those mulleins over there.
Next thing you know, you'll be bringing about my furniture. And this lawn has got to go. It's time for pastures new for this lawn.
Next time?
Yep.
In place of the old lawn, Jem wanted to create a beach effect. By midsummer, he'd enlisted the help of some willing friends to lift the turf, put down a lightweight membrane to keep down the weeds, and cover it with 2 tons of gravel. Gem's inspiration had come from a very special garden.
Last year, 2 friends of mine took me down to see Derek Jarman's garden, the artist-filmmaker, in Dungeness, and it was amazing. And I really like the idea of that kind of slightly barren sort of look that gravel will give, and then the plants coming through it.
All that life. I think it's been a huge inspiration to a lot of people, that garden. We laid the gravel bed 3 inches deep over the membrane to create our instant beach. With the bed prepared, the garden was ready for some new sun-loving plants. All the plants we'd chosen were perfect for this kind of garden, with its hot, dry conditions. They all have these sort of silver leaf surfaces because they're covered in little furry bits and hairs, which actually stops the sun burning the cuticle of the leaf.
This is just stunning, isn't it?
I think it's brilliant. I mean, when you first look at it, it's almost as if it's about to burst into bloom, and then the colour hits you, and it's just such like a striking colour.
It is a sea holly, but it doesn't actually come from the seaside. It comes from high up in the mountains. We wanted to make 2 little islands of plants, keeping them close to the borders, but still allowing space to walk either side.
Yeah, so if we move this out of the way, we'll get through to the... Cool underneath there.
The plants Gem had chosen weren't all from beaches, but they were all plants that would do well in dry, stony situations. Apart from stopping the weeds growing, the membrane also reduced water evaporation, so the plants got all the available water without any competition.
I think that will do. Try that. Come out.
Most of them are pretty tough and would survive with no extra feeding and very little maintenance. Looks like it's always been there. These plants are so sturdy, it didn't take much to get them settled. After replacing the membrane, the gravel went back, making sure they were really bedded in. A few cobbles from a builder's merchant completed the final effect as the beach took shape. I think it's an absolute transformation.
It looks really beautiful. I mean, you almost don't believe it's the same garden, do you? Particularly like the way this grass is sort of coming over the cranberry. I think it looks really good.
It's amazing. And we've got the effect we wanted, haven't we? It doesn't look out of place.
No, not at all. You now feel like you're in Portsmouth, don't you?
On the beach. I think that for both of us, we'd got stuck in a rut about the fact we had to have a lawn. So I was really proud of achieving the fact that we got rid of the lawn. We didn't have to have this scrappy, tiny piece of grass that was a lot of effort to look after and never did well anyway. We could get rid of the whole lot. And so when we put the beach in, I mean, it just brought everything together and it gave it a sense of completeness.
By late summer, I was giving Gem a hand with one of my all-time favourite jobs, collecting seeds from some of the hundreds of plants he'd nurtured throughout the season. We've got so many plants in this garden. I don't know where you're going to start with your seed collection. How many of them did you grow from seed in the first place?
It's got to be at least 2/3 of these were grown from seed.
So that's hundreds?
Yes.
Do you always save your own seed?
If I can save seed, I will, because I just love the idea of free things.
Yeah, and there's nothing like that sort of inspiration you get when you see these things bursting through the soil in the first place.
My favourite bit of the whole thing is just those first seedlings coming through. Every year, I just get so excited. I think we might as well start with those foxgloves, don't you? And it's just full of seed, the whole thing.
There's thousands and thousands of them. So you're going to cut the whole spike off?
What I'll actually do is take the whole plant out. Oops. You have to be so careful.
Don't you? Here we go. Oh, look at that!
That is just amazing, isn't it?
How fecund is that? Thousands and thousands, thousands of them. It's wonderful.
Right. Well, I'm going to write on an envelope so that we know exactly what we've got. I always try and put the date on everything as well, because if you do plant things and hardly any come up,
no.
You know, it can be because they're out of date.
You've got enough for the whole street. In fact, you've probably got enough for the whole of Southsea. What's next?
Some of the poppies could be picked now. I'd like to get some of the seeds from this one. So if you hold the top. Ready?
Yeah. You can hear them going in there.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, you can actually tie paper bags on top of seed heads, can't you? And just, you know, if you're scared of them escaping. Yeah.
I think some of the seeds ready on this arum lily as well. These big fat pods, look.
Do you take them off when they're green?
Some of them I do, yeah.
I leave mine till they're really sort of red and ripe, and then I put them on a saucer and let them rot, because the rotting actually breaks down the seed coat and they germinate straight away.
I actually think they're really quite an easy plant to grow.
Yeah.
But it's one that everybody wants, so we always try and plant a lot of it, really.
With these buttercups, you know, they're all from the buttercup family, the quicker you sow them, the better your results.
Really?
Yeah, so...
When you have got somebody around to bounce ideas off with, that you will explore things to a more deeper level and you can't help talking about it. And I've almost got this inner Carol Klein sitting on my shoulder if I'm doing something, and and I've got the confidence to try things with structure and form, and it's not just about flowers now, it is about foliage, and it's about depth, and it's about heights. And I really enjoy that. And I think that because of that link, that we really brought the garden together.
Jem and Drew's garden has always been a social spot, a place for all their friends to enjoy. At the end of the summer, they threw a party to celebrate the completion of their beach garden. It's almost a year later and the boys haven't lost any of their commitment to the garden, so I'm longing to see what their garden looks like today. It looks better than I've ever seen it.
Good, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm so disappointed you can manage without me so well.
Well, it's nowhere near as much fun though, Carol.
What do you think's made the biggest difference to it?
I think that putting this beach in was definitely the best thing we ever did, because it brought all of the planting together. Yeah. It doesn't look as confused now. I think it's kind of like melded it in a way.
It's still informal, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's got this kind of deliberateness about it. I mean, these opium poppies, that is just great.
Gorgeous, aren't they? It's amazing how they interbreed as well, because it was a peony-flowered one. Yeah. And it bred with a red one that we had, and that's what we've ended up with, is this double red.
You're going to save the seed from this?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that one's particularly good, isn't it? It'd be worth saving.
Yeah, it would. I think, I remember us planting several plants here, though, but the Stipa tenuissima has just taken over completely. Yeah. But it makes you want to roll your trouser legs up.
Oh,
I mean,
wonderful.
You're all right, aren't you, with your shorts on?
Very good excuse to put shorts on is walking past this piece of grass.
And this little grey collection is just lovely.
It's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
But do you remember you were saying that it would be quite likely that things might self-seed into the gravel? Look.
That's one of these.
Yeah.
This tiny seedling has come from the bright blue scabious that towers above it. Oh, brilliant.
And that's the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah. I think you'll find that it will happen, because although there's no actual soil on top of that membrane, you know, some must gradually get down there, and some of these things will actually pierce the membrane with their roots from the top and grow really successfully. So you find all sorts of changes happening. There's nothing static about it, is there?
Which is good, isn't it?
Yeah.
A static garden, I think it's almost a dead one in some ways.
And this bed, I think, is just wonderful. Such fantastic contrast between these different shapes and forms and colour. I think it's really successful.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worked, hasn't it? I mean, I'm really pleased with this syringium here. Again, it was growing from seed, but it's one of those things that in the second year it didn't really do much. Yeah. And then this year, suddenly, boom, there they are. I wasn't even sure what it was.
You know now, don't you? And it's all going to go blue, and it's going to merge so really, really well with these two salvias. That's a salvia with a horrible name, Forscolii.
That's right.
But that's Salvia guaranistica, black and blue, and I think that is just spectacular.
It's a wonderful plant. We picked that one up on the Isle of Wight, and I've actually taken some successful cuttings. Do you want to see?
Yeah, rather.
Do you want to see the lemonry?
The lemonry, previously known as the potting shed, is where Jem raises his plants.
Here we are, look.
Oh, wonderful, and really well rooted too. Can I have a look?
Yeah.
Look at that! Fantastic.
Its fabric looks like a proper plant.
It looks like a plant from a nursery.
It does.
Yeah. What are those? Are those babies of the...
They are. I mean, I was very lucky that that green seed did work. You remember you were saying you always let yours rot? Well, there we are. Proof of the pudding.
What do I know? They're really healthy and beautiful. Everything looks so alive. It's really terrific. It's been wonderful to come back here and see the results of Jem and Drew's enthusiasm and dedication. I wouldn't mind betting their garden will be looking even better next year.
The three gardens we've just seen really underline what gardening's all about, because all three don't depend upon a sudden injection of money or manpower, but the enthusiasm and the commitment of the gardeners. And whilst I'm sure they're grateful for any advice or help from their friends, they don't sit around waiting for someone to come and make their garden for them. They get stuck in and they do it themselves, and that's just as true of all our real gardeners. Carol, Anne-Marie and myself will be visiting 3 of this year's Real Gardeners next week at the slightly later time of 7 o'clock on Sunday evening. We'll see you then. Have a good week. Bye-bye.